Retirement. That's what we're all aiming at, right? But exactly what does that mean? It conjures up visions of endless days of golf, drinks with little umbrellas in them on a tropical beach, feet up, reading a book. Is that what it's all about? I don't think so. Life would get pretty dull after a while without anything meaningful to do, don't you think? I'm Jackie Doucette, and I'm on a mission to discover exactly what life is like beyond retirement. Join me while I chat with people who've already done it, who've retired to something rather than from something. Let's find out together exactly what's waiting for us when we say goodbye to that 9 to 5. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beyond Retirement. I'm your host, Jackie Doucette, and joining me today is Dr. Denise Taylor, a chartered psychologist, author, and later life specialist whose work explores how we find purpose, well-being, and meaning beyond full-time work. With over 25 years of blended psychology, research, and lived experience, Denise helps people navigate midlife transitions and reimagine what later life could be. She's an author. She has written Rethinking Retirement for Positive Aging, Career Coaching for Midlife and Beyond, and she's got another book coming up called Thrive Span, Walking Gently into What Matters Now. It offers a more conscious, joyful path through later life. Whether through her writing, her woodland retreats, or media appearances, Denise invites us to see aging not as a decline, but as a season of freedom, growth, and renewal. Denise, thanks for joining me today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm a little bit tongue-tied. I'm not sure what's going on today. So I read a little bit about who you are in that introduction, but can you tell people in your own words what it is that you help people do or achieve as they age?
Yeah, I've been going through very much a period of rediscovery myself. I was talking to a friend last summer and I realized I'd been working for 52 years and she was talking about retirement and she's 10 years younger than me. And it made me think, do I want to continue with more of the same? Because I always assumed I would. I always assumed I'd be a career and retirement coach to my late 70s and 80s and then I would stop. But I took some time out in the summer, spent it in my wood, and I've now made a conscious decision to do much less of the one-to-one coaching work and much more of the writing and the commentating and taking a more strategic view and developing materials and articles and books to help other people who are working one-to-one with people. And that's re-energized me. And I think that's one of the things that's a really useful thing to think about is like, just take stock. Is everything going well? Carry on. Or as I found out, is like, actually, you want to do something different, which is what I have. And Thrive Span, yeah, well, maybe we'll be talking more about that. But, that I seem to be living and breathing what I'm writing about now.
And I think that's really important. And that's exactly what you should be doing is showing people the life that they can have through what you do. Yeah. What led you to focus on aging and later life just as a career initially?
Yeah, way back, like 40 years ago, I was in the UK. Large organisations used to have people called welfare officers. They were a sort of social worker stroke advice bureau. And at 27, I was the youngest this large organisation had ever employed. They were generally men around 60, and they did the job for a few years before retirement. But I'd got a degree in psychology and I worked for the organisation. And one of the things that I did, I was helping people with probate. I was helping with all sorts of life issues. But I was also running pre-retirement seminars. So at 27, I was standing at the front, being the host of a 3-day retirement planning service for everybody who worked for that large organisation. So I started off doing retirement work way back then. And so it followed me through. I had a career as a consultant where I wasn't doing so much of it. But as I've got older, it's come back more in. And probably for the past 20 years, I've been doing retirement coaching, retirement seminars. And what I think is lovely now is I'm now writing about things that I'm the age. So it's not like I'm writing about things as somebody who's 30. but I'm writing at somebody who's actually living it, but I'm researching it as well. And it's really something that fascinates me. But like I said, I want to move away from the more typical retirement coaching stuff that people do into things that are more about conscious aging, I think is a good way of describing it.
And that kind of leads into my next question, I guess. Over the 25 plus years that you've been doing this, what's changed the most about how people experience life as they age and retirement?
Yeah. I mean, if I think about it, I work for the UK Postal Service. It's called Royal Mail. And clearly a big chunk of the people that I were helping were postal workers who had physically demanding jobs. And to be honest, when they reached retirement age, and with many, it was 65, they were ready to retire. They had a traditional retirement. They were a bit worn out. They'd got spondylosis and arthritis and all these other things. And they just wanted to take life easy. So that's what we had back then. We then went through a phase in the 90s where a lot of UK organisations, their pension funds were awash with money and they just wanted to get rid of people. So if you were 50 plus, you could retire as if you were 60 and they'd make your pension up. They'd add another 10 years into your pot. And it was an index-linked pension. So, it was going to go up every year. It wasn't like it is nowadays with you've got to manage it yourself. And those people, so at the beginning, really, they just wanted just how can I get through life and deal with my health problems? And then the next lot who are 50, it's like, what shall I do? Cruises, golf. And it was all about leisure. It was pretty much all about, nobody then ever talked to me about getting another career. Then with my personal clients, and I brought a book out 10 years ago called Find Work at 50 Plus. And that's still selling well. And so people around 50 were thinking about, am I changing careers? And like, am I retiring? And so you have this dilemma. And it's probably for about 10 years I've been working with people. It's like, do I carry on working in the job? Do I do a proper retirement, typical retirement? Do I go and do something else, semi-retire, change career? So there's a lot more questions that people have. And like now, it's like, so given I've spent 10 years working with people asking those sorts of questions, it's like, you want to keep reinventing myself, it's like, I want something that's a bit more challenging for me than just doing the same thing again. So now I've probably got a much smaller audience that I'm focused on, but these are the people who don't want to just carry on striving. They don't want to just keep on working and like get another job and encore career and everything. It's like, let's just take a step inwards and let's just think what life's all about. And let's think about, I seem to spend a lot of time with people getting them to imagine they're 90, and, their health is now not as great as it was. And looking back on 20 or 30 years and thinking, what are the things that you look back on with joy? And so you can start doing things like that. And it's not working. It's maybe it's finding an interest or spending more time with people and it's not the cruises. It's not what most people think older people are going to do. So these are the people that I'm working with. It's like, actually, I've done a lot of traveling. Don't think I want to do that anymore. But what I do want to do is just feel more content in myself and more content in my relationships with other people. But also a lot of the people I work with are like really senior jobs, really high powered people. And it's like, but if I'm not the head of a law firm, who am I? And that is the biggie about coming up with identity and how do they describe themselves without saying, I used to be chief police inspector or something, you can't carry on saying I used to be. So, well, who are you now?
Yeah. And I think that's a key point now because people are living so much longer and they need to be doing something or they're feeling like they need to be doing something. Yeah. And that kind of leads me into one of the things that in the mindfulness and meditation kind of sphere where I'm sort of dabbling right now, one of the things they try to make us focus on is the idea of moving away from doing and just being. And I think that's really important, that we've got to learn that you don't have to be doing all the time. You can still be a person.
Yeah. And 5 years, it's just coming up to 5 years ago, I bought a woodland. I know when I talk to people from America, they go like, what is this thing called a wood? But, it's like a small forest. It's 4 acres of land with trees. And it was, during COVID-19. And everybody wants to be out in nature. And it was like a lot of people there. And I bought a wood. I bought my own wood. And just being able to go there and spend time. And if I'm in my home, whatever I'm doing, I'm sort of on call for work because my computer's here, my books are here and everything. I go to the wood. I keep my phone on me because if I fall over badly, I need to be able to phone somebody. But it's on silent and it's not something that I'm looking at all the time. But I get out of the car and I breathe and it's like I'm a being. I'm not a doing. And I'm so different. It's sort of, I think there's a bit about I'm resetting my nervous system. I just feel so much calmer when I'm there. And there is quite a lot of money involved in looking after a wood with sort of having to get contractors in. But I'll spend as much, I'd rather spend money on that now than going off on a long haul trip. But this thing that you said about, the doing, and what I'm finding a lot when I look on things on LinkedIn is everybody's talking about encore careers and carry on working and I'm going to work till I'm 80 or 90 or whatever. And it just sounds so exhausting. And I do wonder about the people who do that. And if that's what they want to do, we're all different, we've all got our own interests. But will they reach a point where they think, I missed out on the period that I'm in now, where I do some work, but a lot less. But I can take the time to literally smell the roses and, savor my coffee and things. And I seem to be a bit of a lone voice on LinkedIn saying, you don't just have to keep on working. And some people are agreeing with me. Some people get really irate. Clearly, I've touched a nerve on them. I posted something on LinkedIn the other day about, taking things more easy. And somebody said to me something about, I appreciate your point of view, but that's not how I'm going to get older. My role model is Dr. Ruth, who's 102, and this woman I know who's 80, and this other woman who did a triathlon at 95. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness me. But so for her, getting older is all about, I'm just going to carry on working. Whereas I think, and she reckons it's because she's an extrovert. She has to keep on. You must be an introvert if you just want to be on your own in your wood. It's like, not quite that. But I think there's a lot of people, and for them, they're not going to get old because they're going to carry on. Same pace, just keep going.
Until they hit the wall.
It's one approach. But what happens when they get ill and they can't do it anymore? Or they burn out, or, their partner dies and, the grief is all consuming and they hadn't even thought about how that might affect them. So I just say my stuff, and if people listen, lovely. And if they don't, I'm not going to convert people. It's just, I'm just putting an alternative narrative out there. I think that's a grand way of calling it. So you don't have to just keep striving and working. You can actually, just take a bit of time, and most of us will carry on working to some extent. It's not 50, 60 hours like it used to be.
And I agree with you. I don't think it needs to be that. You can find fulfillment in something if it's the right thing for you without working until you drop dead.
Yeah, and that's the most awful thing, isn't it? When people have been saying, oh, well, when I retire, I'm going to, and then they or their partner die. And that is so sad, and it's like they missed out completely because, yeah.
So your new book, Thrive Span, that's kind of an interesting title. Can you talk about the title a little bit and what walking gently into what matters now really means?
The 9 books up to now have been conventional books. You start at chapter 1 and you probably carry on until the final chapter. I wrote this book at my wood, and it's based on 7 years. This is the book. This is the area I wanted when I got my doctorate, which I got at 64, which is 4 years ago. And 21, So this is the area that I wanted to research. And it's a professional doctorate, which is slightly different to a PhD. But they told me that I couldn't do the research I wanted to do. It had to be connected to the workplace. So it had to be retirement. So my research was, how do people find meaning in life after full-time work? And what are the psychological factors that help? Because I'm a psychologist, so we had to get those in. And one of them is curiosity. That's being curious is really good for helping you to age well. So for 7 years, actually, when I started my doctorate, which was during lockdown, I was thinking, well, can I write this book at the same time? And I did start doing that for the first year. And it's like, you are getting a bit crazy, Denise. I know you've got all this time, but there's a pandemic. So I left the book to one side. But the good thing about leaving the book to one side, because I didn't have a wood when I first started reading it, is then coming back to it. It's like, I want to write it in a different way. So it's called Thrive Span because it's around thriving instead of striving. So it took ages to work out, a good title and, I think, and span of life. So that's how it came about. But how the book starts is, imagine yourself like, okay, let me just say it like it is. So you've arrived, now it's time to put your feet onto the earth and to breathe. And now it's your decision. I'm doing a much quicker way than it is in the book. You've got 3 paths to walk in. So it's a bit like, you arrive at my wood and now you've got 3 paths. Which path do you want to go down? And the first path is looking inwards. So it's about self and well-being. And then the second path is about community. So it's connection and contribution. And the third path is about purpose and joy and creativity. So you've got these 3 paths. So you don't have to start at the beginning, because you could think, let's go and explore joy. So joy is one of the sub paths under path 3. So we've got these different areas. So the book is written as you can just open it any time. There's inter-chapter essays that just go a bit more thoughtful into some of the areas, but it's not a textbook. I haven't got loads of exercises for people to do, because the last book I did had 40 exercises in, and it's like, no, I don't want to be like, do this exercise and then reflect it. It's got reflective questions for you to like sit with and think about. But it's just to get people thinking about these areas. And the first chapter is really big compared to everything else, which is about well-being and rhythm, because health, you've got to break it down into the different areas. And it's almost like that's your compost, I suppose, because without health, well, of course, you can still do all these different things if you have got poor health. But health is an area to start on, and it's about where are you now and how can you maintain that level of health, or maybe even get it better. But then it's people can look into the different areas. So it's around 45,000 words, I think. So it's not a huge book. I didn't want to write a huge book. I wanted it to be a more thoughtful companion. So that's how I see it as a thoughtful companion. But it's based on academic research, because people keep telling me I'm quite unusual, because I got my doctorate at 64. I've been working in this field for 40 years, and I'm like, I'm old, I'll be 70 next year. So, it's quite an unusual combination. So I've made sure it wasn't just writing a book on being older based on my life. Like, lots of people do that, but it's based on academic research. I went back and read all these academic papers that are about aging. And because I've got a doctorate, I can read academic papers like some really easy newspaper. That I can just like skim through them. It's an amazing skill to have. So I could bring together, theories by Super and Boltz and, Levinson and all these other people, but just introduce them. So I have a theoretical model, and I've got a paper that's going through the publishing process to go into a learned journal. But that's just to prove my academic credentials about it. The most important thing is when I give it to my mum or my sister, or you buy it or something, and it's a book that will sit with you. It's not, it's a book that you can just about fit into your handbag, rather than, it's this weighty tome that has to be left at home. So, yeah.
It sounds really interesting, actually. Something that you can just kind of pick up wherever you are and however you feel and follow the right path.
Yeah. And I've even got another book that's half done. Honestly, I'm so on a roll with writing. And the book that comes after, that's coming out in October, is called Olderhood Unfolding. And that one is 52 essays. I've written 37, but I'm going back and looking at some of them because I think, I'm not sure. But basically it's going to have 52 essays. So there's one a week. And again, you could just dip in and it can be, this is the essay essay's a bit grand, it's like, it's an article, but you can take an essay for the week and then read it and then reflect on it. And there'll be reflective prompts. And that's another book that I'm actually, as I write them, I'm testing them out. I sit with them. And so I've got my own answers to them because I also am doing myself as an experiment because I want to see, do the answers that I came up with at, say, 67, what will it be like when I look at it again at 77? Will I be answering them in a different way? It's another academic paper I can write on. So I love writing. And I just want to give it seems to be a sort of a bit of a different view than other people are doing. I know there's people that are doing like conscious aging, but they're doing it from a very spiritual perspective. But I don't want it to be religiously spiritual. I want it to be a bit more pragmatic and real.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I was going to ask what positive aging looks like. When you put it into practice, what does it mean to you? And you're kind of saying that.
Yeah, and honestly, there's so many books going around, isn't there? The book Rethinking Retirement, my publisher went and added for positive aging on it. And I'm going like, I don't like it. I hate the term positive aging. Can you just remove it? Oh, it's good for SEO, they said. I go like, but I don't agree. And it's like, well, tough. You sign the contract. We can call it whatever we want, basically. I keep on telling people, like, I'll be 70 next year. I mean, I'm still 68, but I'll be 70 next year. And I'm quite happy to say that. I think positive aging is more about, I guess it's a positive state of mind and to accept getting older. And we've both got grey hair. And it's like, but why would we pretend we're young and still dye our hair the same shade of dark brown that we had when we were 30? Because it's not the colour you are now. So I think it's good if we can stand into accepting aging. And so like younger friends for all of us can look at us and they go like, don't look that bad really, does it? If Jacqueline's like this and Denise is like that, bring it on. And I think that's what we need to do. Because the people who go, I'm not old, I'm ageless. And I do think that's a WTF point. Because it's like, well, what do they mean? It's like, I'm just like, well, I'll just claim my age, because I do think younger people, they need to see those of us that are 60 or 70 or 150 or whatever age we happen to be and think, well, look, they're still doing that. Because otherwise, if you pretend you're still 50, I'm 21 again. It's like, then but that's I think sometimes the reason people don't like to say their age is it's all about their own self-concept, and they can't accept it. So I always think kindly of people like that. I would never berate them in public, but it's maybe they'll change their mind or maybe not. My mum has friends in their 90s who still insist they're 60 something. And I did say to one of them, I said, but I'm 68. And she's in her 90s because she's my mum's friend, but
I always find that amusing too. And the people when I was younger who were upset because they were 39, or, they couldn't say they were 40 because it's such a big difference from 39. And now you're in your 60s. So was 39 that bad?
Yeah, quite. I mean, and people are like, I wish I was 39 again. I go, right.
I'm glad I'm not.
Would you really want all of that angst? Because I think wherever we are, it's about being happy with the age that we are, isn't it? And we've all had setbacks and disappointments and stuff, but and I can think of some I've had, but they've made me who I am. If I hadn't gone for that traumatic relationship ending, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. So, but I can see it like that because I am more positive. And most of us have heard about the work by Becca Levy about, if you're taking a more positive attitude, you're going to live 7.5 years longer. So, it's just keep that in mind.
And that actually was my next question was going to be what's one action that people could take right now to start thriving? And I think, that is it.
Yeah. But the other is about remaining curious, because, and that came from my academic research. I did this masses of stuff that you have to do at doctoral level, but thinking about the personality factors, curiosity really helps people to age well, and then to have a more successful later life. If we think about personality qualities, there's something called conscientiousness, which basically means, you organize and you do things that you say you're going to do, and conscientiousness matches with a longer, more healthier later life. And I think that's because if you're conscientious, you take your medication and you do what the doctors tell you to do, and things like that. And another thing is around being proactive, because if you just sit back and wait for other people to do stuff for you or to you, and then moan because nobody ever does anything to you, well, so it's about having agency and taking ownership for things. So yeah, be proactive. If you want to go somewhere, ask somebody or go on your own. But the being curious and appreciating joy, appreciating the small things, I think they're things anybody can do. It's like, what do you mean by being curious? Somebody asked me. I said, well, just like being interested. Like, do you want to learn an instrument? Do you want to start reading a different book? Do you want to just do something different? Just ask the question why. So I think curiosity, it keeps us young. It keeps us young because we're not just living in the past. Because if we're not curious, we go like, well, back in my day. And young people don't want to hear us say, back when I was young. It's no.
Yeah, because that time is gone.
Yeah, unless they're doing some historical thing. And in fact, I was in one of the national newspapers the other week, and I think I'm their token old person, because they were asking me what it was like when I was young. Honestly, I felt like, what was it like in the war, Grandad? But what was it like when I was young about not having central heating? Because they said to me, well, you didn't have central heating when you were young. And it's like, no. And so they wanted me to write an article for them about, staying warm in the weather. And it's like, wear more layers of clothes, it's like rocket science. And keep active and warm one room and make sure that your bed is warm. So when you get into bed, you can dive into bed and things. And they're going, oh, this is amazing. And I'm thinking, but ask anybody over 50 and they know these sorts of things. But hey, they paid my journalist fees for me to write the article. So hey, I was quite happy.
It's funny when you think about how things have changed and what younger people think of as normal that you didn't have. Yeah. And each year it seems to be a little bit more distant, or a little bit further away from your childhood and what things are now. Mm. And I think what you said about being curious is really important, and it takes you back to just being a child again and asking, why is it that way? It doesn't take much.
We had that, didn't we? I think every child is curious unless it's got beaten out of things with some terrible childhood. So it's like, well, why not be interested and ask people questions? Be curious about other people as well, not just because the typical. We both know typical older people, and like, how are you? And they just give you the whole list of ailments, and it's like, you're not meant to say that. You're meant to say fine. Nobody wants to hear, but people do, don't they? They just talk about all the things that are going wrong in their life, and then they wonder why people don't actually want to talk to them.
That's it, exactly. But it's also important when someone asks you to be honest with them, I think. Mm. Or you could turn it around and say, do you really want to know?
Quite. Yeah, and I think there's a difference between, your close friends who who are interested, and more,
Yes.
just people that, what's the word? Not close friends, just connections. I don't know. Can't
Acquaintances.
think of the word.
Acquaintances.
Acquaintances. That's the word that escaped me. Yeah, I mean, they're just saying like, so how are you? And it's just part of the, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, definitely we should be honest to those that we're close to, especially if because we all get feeling low, and like, I would never say you've just got to keep you on your happy face at all the time, because that's not sensible or good for any of us. I mean, I have days where I feel more low, and I have my own ways of dealing with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, where can listeners go to find out more about you and the books that you've written and the things that you're doing?
Okay. Well, I write a lot on Substack. I've been on there for nearly 2 years now, and it's Aging Reimagined. And anybody would find really interesting articles there. I write on a Monday about general topics about aging, and on a Thursday, it's more detailed articles to do with what I call Olderhood. So that's slightly more academically orientated. I'm trying to split them so that one day is this and the other day is that. That's a really good place to find me. They can find me on my website. And I'm also on LinkedIn, but I think I like Substack. I'll give you all the details so that they can be in your show notes rather than me starting to read them out now.
Well, no, exactly. I'll put them all in the show notes.
And details about my book will be on my personal website, and will be on Substack as well, because, as I said, I seem to be on a bit of a roll writing books at the moment. I had a spell where, I mean, as a writer, your royalties are really low nowadays, and it was, do I actually want to? But getting commissioned to write the last book, Career Coaching for Midlife and Beyond, it was a lovely ending to that sort of work that I did. And these next two books, Thrivespan and Olderhood Unfolding, these are the ones I'm just so excited. I don't care if I don't make hardly any money about them. I just want to tell the story. And I've got some things that are under development about how I can expand on that. But I'm not sharing it just now, but as this goes live, there may well be information coming out around that. But I need to trials. I'm quite good at trialing things now before I try and launch things. I need to check it whether it's going to work. So I'm going to leave it till March. I know, because obviously we've recorded this early. So I'm going to, so this by the time this is live, it will have been trialed, and we'll see whether it's working or not. And then there'll be info all over the place about it.
Yes, that'll be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the listeners before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. Is there something? I think one of the things is people are quite surprised about me that I'm really into drum and bass. But there's something for me about the pulsating music of that. And I was never into I don't think they had drum and bass when I was young. Anyway, I was a bit of a hippie and then a bit of a punk. But there's, for me, there's something about, and I love the quietness of my wood, but I also like the pulsating bass when I go to gigs, and the music just goes through me and resonates through me. And I sometimes look around and I think I'm probably older than everybody's mother here. And I don't care. And I'll often go to these gigs on my own because most of my friends aren't interested in it. But that's okay, so we start talking to people. But I think the reason I'm sharing it is like sometimes it's step into that fear. So for me, it was like, I'll go to gigs on my own. If that's the music I want to listen to, which surprises people, I will. But for somebody else, it might be, you know what, I've always wanted to kayak. And it's like, can I, should I, will I, who? Do it. I mean, because if we don't do it now, if we leave it in 5 years' time, maybe it'll be less easy for us. I should have done it then. So I think this is the one thing I'd say for everybody for the year going ahead. It's like, the whole feel the fear and do it anyway. But I think it's a bit like that. It's like, but if it energizes you, it's something you'd really like to do, give it a go. And if it doesn't work, because I've done some things that really don't work, but I tried them. I did improv comedy for a few years, but I realized it was hard work. And yeah, it was using brain cells that were really, really hard going, because I was doing it with all these young people and their brain is working differently to me. And I just needed a bit more time. And it's improv. You haven't got time. So I keep on thinking, do I go back? But I think that I really enjoyed it for a while, but but I'm glad I tried it, even though I was like the oldest by a good number of years.
That's fabulous. And I think it's perfect. You need to try the things that you think of, whether they work or not.
Yeah. And if they don't work, well, at least you tried, didn't you?
Exactly.
And it's another story to tell the great-grandchildren about.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
I was 70, I did this or that.
Excellent. Denise, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today. I've really enjoyed it. You're a fascinating person. And I'm sure that you'll keep writing books for many, many years to come.
I'm sure I will as well. But thank you so much for inviting me. And it's been a joy. You've been lovely. Thank you.
And that's it for this episode of Beyond Retirement. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed it. Are you ready to start rocking your retirement? Head on over to www.beyondretirement.ca/rocking it and sign up to plan out your own roadmap for retirement. Don't wait till it's too late.